coming back to the channel. This is another recap on a Taza Cup I did on the Ayatollah Khomeini, September of 2019, where I saw Iran fighting with another Muslim-like country because of the architecture. Then I did not know that Crimea had a similar architecture, or in the Ukraine had a similar architecture. They actually have Muslim architecture, and Crimea specifically has a large Muslim community and a Muslim history that it affects the architecture there. So I just wanted to clarify that, put it up. But I did see Iran sending soldiers to fight in another country by a beach with drones, and that they were going to use those drones and attack civilians and buildings and things like that. And this week of October 20s, in the 20s, I don't know exactly what day, it came out on the news that a Russian spilled the beans, one of the Russian politicians or generals, I don't know what, spilled the beans on a show, that Iran was sending their soldiers to Crimea, a city with a lot of mosques, to teach the Russians to fight with drones. And the Russians used those drones and struck Kyiv and attacked civilians, infrastructure, and buildings. So stay tuned for the Taza reading and a little bit of the history of Crimea and the news. Thank you.
The mosque was built in 2002 for the Tatar community. Inside, men gather for prayers. Hussein Toklu says he will never accept Russian rule in Crimea.
When Russia annexed Crimea, between 10 to 40,000 Tatars fled because of political and religious pressure and the lack of freedom of speech. They left behind their homes and property and have had to start life again. Not only Tatars, but all Ukrainians live in perpetual uncertainty. Everyone is talking about a potential war.
You see how these guys over here come out far away? That's another country. They come out smaller and thinner. That's another country. And if you notice how they come out with like turbans, so yeah, that's them. That's in Iran. And that, I think this is here in Iran. Now these guys, the ones with the turban in their heads, they're also like army military guys. And they're going to another Arabic country.
Says military trainers from Iran are in Crimea, helping Russian troops use Iranian-made drones in attacks on Ukraine. Washington believes Iranian drones hit the capital Kyiv and energy facilities across the country. Iran has not reacted to the latest US accusations, but denies the drones are Iranian-made.
We can confirm that Russian military personnel based in Crimea have been piloting Iranian UAVs and using them to conduct kinetic strikes across Ukraine, including in strikes against Kyiv in recent days. We assess that Iranian military personnel were on the ground in Crimea and assisted Russia in these operations. Russia has received dozens of these UAVs so far and will likely continue to receive additional shipments in the future.
Well, we'll speak to Mohammed Val in Moscow in a moment, but first let's go to Mohammed Jamjoon in Kyiv. And Mohammed, what's the reaction been there when it comes to any Iranian involvement with these drones?
Well, Tom, there was a statement that was issued earlier today by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. That statement read in part that the Russian Federation is transporting Iranian instructors to prepare and train drone operators to utilize the Shahed 136 and the Arash drones. Those are the drones that are known more commonly these days as kamikaze drones here in Ukraine against Ukrainian forces. It's interesting that this statement did not go into detail as far as where this is happening, because there have been reports over the course of the past week in Ukrainian media outlets which have stated that there are, according to their sources, Iranian instructors, personnel in Crimea, and that they are helping to train Russian forces to utilize those kamikaze drones against Ukrainian targets throughout this country. This is all coming at a time when the Ukrainian officials at all levels of government have been echoing the fact that they are very concerned about all this, and they have been accusing very publicly Iran of equipping Russian fighters with these kamikaze drones. Of course, we should mention.
And then the other, I honestly, this is a real mess. So I'm just going to tell you what I read. I'm just going to tell you what I see, and I won't weave situations together because I may be wrong on that, but I'll tell you what I see. I see the Iranians having issue with another Arabic country. And obviously that's happening right now, so you don't need to be a fortune teller for that. But what does come out is that the next time there is a bombing or an attack, it's going to be in another Arabic country in the water. In the water. And 3 people, so in the ocean somewhere. And 3 people, it's gonna come out on the news that there were 3 casualties. At least 3 casualties.
At least 3 people have died after a key road and rail bridge linking Crimea to Russia was destroyed by a major explosion. Russian officials say the blast occurred inside a freight truck, causing 7 fuel tanker wagons to catch fire on a train that was heading for the peninsula. 2 sections of the bridge have partially collapsed, and thick smoke could be seen billowing from the area. The blast did not damage the arch spanning the strait, the waterway used by ships travelling between the Black and Azov Seas.
Close to maybe one of these Arabic countries near the water. And yep, and it's going to be another drone attack or another missile, something in the air. Small. It's not large.
Despite repeated denials, CNN has learned that Iran is taking a more hands-on approach to help Russia and Ukraine. Sources tell CNN that Iranian military trainers have been on the ground in occupied territory, helping to train Russian troops on how to use Iranian-made weapons Moscow is now deploying across Ukraine. CNN's Katie Bo-Lillis joins me now with this new reporting. So, Katie Bo, how are U.S. officials responding to this? There's a lot of pressure on increased sanctions right now.
Yeah, Bianna, look, for U.S. officials who are tracking this is just yet another signal of a troubling and growing closeness in between Moscow and Tehran. When Russia first started testing and deploying these Iranian-made drones across Ukraine, they had a lot of problems. They experienced numerous failures, and Russian operators had traveled to Iran to do some training on these drones, but it clearly wasn't enough. It clearly wasn't working. And so sources tell us that in recent weeks, Iranian military personnel have themselves begun traveling to Russian-occupied Crimea to train and advise Russian operators on how best to use these drones. Now, at this point, Bianna, we don't know exactly how many Iranian military personnel were sent to Crimea. One source we spoke to who's familiar with the intelligence put it at dozens. And we don't know if they still remain there. But for U.S. officials who are tracking this, this is the presence of Iranian operators on the ground in Crimea is a clear escalation of Iran's support to Russia's war effort. And these drones have been an incredibly effective tool for Russia, particularly in recent weeks. They have what the U.S. military believes to be hundreds of them that they are using to terrorize Ukrainian cities across the country, as well as to try to strike Ukrainian energy infrastructure going into the winter, part of a strategy of what Western military analysts have described as an effort to try to economically exhaust Ukraine going into the winter. They're using them in particular as kind of a replacement for their own depleted stores of precision missiles that they've burned through in the first 8 months of this conflict. So this Iranian support, it matters. It is significant.
Yeah, and these
At least 3 people dead here. This one guy running away. It's like I don't know. It's like a civilian. There's going to be civilian casualties. The drone bombing for Saudi Arabia was just the oil refinery. I don't think there were any casualties. Now there's going to be casualties of civilians. I see a young man here. There's like a drone strike or something above the air, a small missile or something here. There are women. Here's a woman wounded. He's hiding. So the guy's hiding, running away and trying to hide from the missile chasing him here, or the drone. And he sees all this happening in the ocean. 3 people dead at least. And he runs away trying to find refuge. There's smoke here. Here's another woman.
And while some experts believe that Russia is running short of munitions, Russian forces have begun using a new weapon with devastating effects. Early this morning, a swarm of so-called suicide drones bombarded Ukraine's capital. Kamikaze weapons packed with deadly explosives that detonate on impact. They've been used to attack frequently in recent weeks. Today, they rained down on city streets. Russia's repeatedly claimed that it doesn't target civilians, but this neighbourhood in Kiev is home to apartment buildings, restaurants and schools. Kiev's mayor, Vitaly Klitschko, called Russia a terrorist state.
Killed a lot of people, civilians, unguilty people, and that's why it's terror attack.
Ukraine says it shot down some of the drones today. This video appears to show Ukrainian police officers making a successful hit, but they're small and apparently difficult to track on radar. They're also cheap, some reportedly selling for around $20,000 each. The US says Iran has agreed to provide hundreds of drones to Russia for use in Ukraine, but Iran denies it.
Thank you for listening to this recap. I appreciate it. This is what I have to do for my records and my channel and the readings. I'm sorry that it's morbid. These political readings, this is what will show up. These are serious readings, right? The good and the bad and the ugly show up here. But in one of those readings I did for President Zelensky, I did see him happy. And addressing his people, addressing the Ukrainians. So I have hope and faith that this war will be over soon, and that they will be triumphant, and that Putin will be done away with forever, and peace will return to that part of the world at the very least, and to most of the world, because this chaotic situation there is creating other wars in other places. So let's keep praying, you guys. Let's keep the faith that everything will be done away with this situation, and good things are coming. And again, thank you so much for being here, for listening. I appreciate you all so very much. Blessings to you and your family and your animals. Your animals are your family. To your pets and to your loved ones. And I'll see you soon. Bye. Thank you.